How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Dinosaurs of Primal Carnage Extinction. Because Primal Carnage Evolution is coming out to PlayStation, I figured we can do some different types of Primal Carnage content. Now, I've already played the game with some friends, and so you'll be seeing those videos, or you've already seen those videos, but I also decided to do something that's a little bit more like something I've done before. That is the Creatures of series that I haven't done in a while. This will be my first time doing it in a video game, so I'm pretty excited to do that. It'll also be easier to visualize it. So we'll start off with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, of course, this very iconic Primal Carnage T-Rex that is just, I'm sure that many of us recognize this one. It's very cool. So it's got a huge, bulky appearance, which is pretty correct for T-Rex. T-Rex did have quite a bit of muscle. It's got like a huge, thick tail right here, which is also pretty true for the animal. Large legs back here. Two relatively, proportionally small arms with 2 digits on each hand that are actually facing inward. All of that is correct. The head shape is not too terribly correct. It's a little bit more like the Jurassic Park T-Rex in the fact that it's a little bit more blocky. You know, the real animal had like a thinner snout. And it's also extremely wide and circular when you look at it head on. But its eyes are facing forward, which is true for T-Rex. And it does have a little bit of like some ridges over here. The design kind of makes it look a little bit more like the Jurassic Parks. But T-Rex did have things like this over the eyes. It had like lacrimal structures as well as post-orbital structures back here. And, this looks like a valid take on that. It's also portrayed without lips. Those teeth are very much exposed. T-Rex and other theropods most likely had lips. And of course, it seems to have what appear to be osteoderms on the back. Like these ones in particular are very similar to crocodilian osteoderms. And then also you got these ones over here. So it's a little bit armored. There's no evidence for armor like that on T-Rex. And with how many specimens we found, if something like that did exist, of course, we likely would have found it. But it's a very cool model. I really like it. And there's some cool skins with it too. Next up is Spinosaurus, and I actually have a skin equipped, so let me change that real quick. So here's the base game Spinosaurus. It is very much like an older reconstruction of Spinosaurus, kind of like the early 2000s version of it, the type that you saw in something like Jurassic Park. It's got like proportionally long legs. It seems likely that Spinosaurus had proportionally small legs, though that is a matter of debate and it's a little bit controversial. So we're not going to really like focus on that too much longer. It has like a D shape in the sail, which is probably a bit more likely than the sort of notch that you see in most other depictions. Like, how you see them in most pieces of art, it kind of like comes up right here, then it dips down, then it comes back up here, then it dips down again. The half circle is probably a bit more likely because it seems like that's the more traditional shape for sails out there. Most animals that we find that have sails have the half circle as opposed to the one with a notch in it. So this is probably a bit more likely. It does have a pretty thin and long S-shaped neck. I don't think we really have the neck of Spinosaurus specifically, but we do have one that's probably for Sigilmassasaurus, although Sigilmassasaurus might simply just be synonymous with Spinosaurus. But who truly knows right now? And this is pretty close to what that looks like right there. The snout shape is also really not that far off, I don't think. I think it's a little bit more like a baryonyx snout shape. But again, it's not really too far off. That is a pretty classic Spinosaurid shaped snout right there, especially with these really long and conical teeth. It has high raised nostrils up here that seem to be set to the side. Yeah. Like they're not put on top of the skull. It has a little crest right here in the middle of its forehead, essentially, which is something that Spinosaurus had. Both species had that. And it's got like these little spikes or maybe another mini sail up here, something that we don't have evidence for. Of course, Spinosaurus did have a basilisk-like tail in the fact that it had tall neural spines and long chevrons, going all the way down the full tail, essentially. It kind of looked like like I said, a basilisk tail or a sort of paddle tail. Obviously, this model would not have that because this game came out way before we ever found that out. The skin I had equipped actually gives it that. Let me show you real quick. This one right here. It's called Quilombensis, which is the species name for Oshalaya, but we'll just ignore that for now. Hey, it's me from the future. So I'm actually not going to ignore that for now, because as I was editing this, I noticed that there was a little description for the mutation, and I decided to read it. And it says something kind of interesting that I want to talk about right now. Here's what it says. It's genetically modified, displaying traits of Irritator and Oshalaya, such as a broad tail, stout skull, receding neck fringe, and bulkier body. That is interesting, because those are two very fragmentary Spinosaurids. Irritator is predominantly known from its skull, so I assume when they talk about the stout skull, that's in reference to Irritator. But I kind of imagine that like the tail is based off of Oshalaya, which is, if that's true, that's kind of odd, because we don't really have much of Oshalaya. Oshalaya is mainly just known from like small pieces of the skull. It is like the king of fragmentary Spinosaurs. We don't really know what Oshalaya looks like. Now, of course, in paleoart, Oshalaya is often depicted as like another animal that looks a lot like Spinosaurus. And I think a lot of the reason why that was done is because Oshalaya was, for at least a while, considered to be pretty closely related to Spinosaurus. But in actuality, we don't really know much of what Oshalaya looked like. Now, Spinosaurus actually has that broad tail, so you could have just said that it had like more pure traits of spine. I don't know what the lore is of this game, so maybe that wouldn't really clash correctly. We don't know about Irritator's tail either, so there's certainly a lot of mystery in those two Spinosaurs. It's just, I just thought that was interesting. It's like it shows traits of those animals, even though we don't really know a lot about the anatomical appearance of those animals. I just wanted to bring it up. And yeah, this one makes it a little bit more accurate, especially in the tail. They gave it a tail, like it has a tail that's a little bit more proper in its shape, which I think is very cool. I think that I like the fact that they did that. And of course, Spinosaurus and Spinosaurids in general had pretty long arms with 3 fingers on each hand. All around, it's a very classic model. The previous one, this one's, this one's like a mixture between updated and outdated, which is also fun. I also love stuff like that. Next up is Acrocanthosaurus, the high-spined lizard. Wow, this looks so good. This is probably one of my favorite models in the game. Because, I mean, look at it. The shape of it is generally pretty correct. That snout shape is pretty much what Acrocanthosaurus' snout looked like. It has crests set like right in front of its eyes, and you'll notice back here that it does have its high spines. You'll notice that its neck is a little bit wider, and its back is also a little bit higher, because it had tall, narrow spines that ran all the way down its back and likely created what would look like a hump-like structure, or maybe just a hump in general. And that's pretty much what we have right here. So yes, this is the shape of Acrocanthosaurus. The arms seem to be the correct length as well, and it's got like 3 fingers on each hand. It looks really good. I think it's a very solid design. It's also very loud. I don't know why that did that so many times. Next up is I have a seagull skin equipped, but next up is the Novaraptor, which is a fictional species. Here's the default skin, and as you saw, you can give them feathers, but the default skin, obviously, it's not really something that would make too much sense for this family of dinosaurs. Dromaeosaurids, which is the family that Utahraptor, Velociraptor, and Deinonychus all belong to, were feathered animals, which means that they would have had, most of them at the very least, would have had like complete feathering going down the whole body, starting all the way up from the head, possibly with the snout exposed, going down all the way over here onto the tail, and possibly leaving some of the feet exposed as well. In fact, their arms would have been almost completely covered in feathers, with most of their hand not being visible. Given the size of Novaraptor here, I'd say it's likely mostly like based off of Utahraptor or just the Jurassic Park Velociraptors. It looks a lot more like the Jurassic Park Velociraptors than it does Utahraptor, especially in that skull shape. So that's likely the main inspiration for it. We might as well look at a skin that gives it feathers, and I like the seagull one. The seagull one's fun, but we'll do the classic one because that feels classic. And the coverage actually looks pretty darn good on this one. Like, you have a little bit of a tail fan back here and a little bit of a crown up here as well. It seems like, for the most part, the animal is practically completely covered in feathers in all of the spots that it should be covered. Even most of the hands are covered. Like, their hands would have been so covered in feathers that you would almost not even be able to see them in life. That's how feathered they would have been. Oh, and also they do have the sickle claws. One on each foot, which is something that dromaeosaurids, of course, did have. So, very cool. And again, another, like, in this one in particular, another mix between, you know, a stylized and more up-to-date version. And then we have Oviraptor, which I believe this one's just feathered by default. Yeah, default Oviraptor is simply just feathered. Also true, Oviraptorosaurs were mainly feathered dinosaurs. This specifically, I think, is mostly based off of Psittipati, which is another type of Oviraptorosaur, but I'm not even too sure if Psittipati itself is completely, like, actually looks completely like this, because I don't even know if Psittipati had a crest. Like, I think there's a lot of debate about that. So I think this is based off of another Oviraptorosaur specimen that is not Oviraptor nor Psittipati. Regardless, it's a very nice looking design that kind of looks like paleoarts just placed into the game. You know, you have a pretty brightly colored crest up here. You have a beak, which is something that Oviraptorosaurs do have, at the very least most of them. I'm not too familiar with any that didn't, but I'm just going to keep it relatively vague just to be on the safe side. Like I said, they had feathers, and the feather coverage looks pretty nice overall. And interestingly, it seems like oh, never mind. It looked like they just had two. It looked like it only had like 2 toes, kind of like an ostrich. But no, it's got 3 toes. Very bird-like feet, of course, walking on its toes and everything. I like this one too. I think that it's a really good default skin for the animal. Like, you can just, you know, equip this one, and I think it just looks solid. So then we'll go ahead and move on from the dinosaurs, well, some of the dinosaurs, and go to the pterosaurs. Oh my gosh, look at that posture. So yeah, it's got like a little bit of a gremlin style posture going on here with the wings folded in a very interesting way. When pterosaurs folded their wings, the membrane would essentially like pretty much completely disappear back here. So you would mostly just be seeing the ring finger as it's walking around. And it doesn't even look like they're plantigrade, which is interesting. Pterosaurs are plantigrade, which means that they walk on their full foot as opposed to walking on their toes. And it seems like these guys are walking on their toes. This one specifically is clearly based off of Pteranodon longiceps, which is a species that is predominantly identified by having a crest with this shape right here. It's kind of like a banana shape, I suppose. That looks pretty good. I think that looks quite solid, and it has a pretty long beak. One thing that is lacking are the pycnofibers, aka the feathers. Pterosaurs did have little filamentous structures like that were basically covering the whole body, even all the way up to the neck and everything. And that is lacking here, but all around, you can certainly tell what this is meant to be. And then there's Tupandactylus right here, one of the huge crested pterosaurs, up there with Thalassodromeus and Tapijara. Beautiful look for the crest as well. I like it. I like the shape of it, and it seems to have like a decent structure to it. The head shape seems to be pretty good. It's just a lot of the same things that we mentioned for the Pteranodon apply to this one, in the fact that it is naked. You don't have any pycnofibers going on here. The wings are not folded correctly, and the feet seem to mainly just be on their toes. But I really, really like the way that its head looks. Like, you got a nice looking beak right here and a really nice looking crest. Now, Dilophosaurus. This is one of the most interesting portrayals of Dilophosaurus that I have seen, mainly because of the way that these crests are portrayed. Now, nowadays you see those crests portrayed in like being really huge. This one is certainly like one of the most toned back that I've ever seen. Now, to be fair, we don't have a complete Dilophosaurus crest. In fact, this is probably all we have, what they show right here, because it's very broken. It's very jagged up here, both of the crests, and so you can't see how large they were in life. That is something that's completely up to artist interpretation. And of course, the crests would have been larger by default because of keratin. So even if the bone was, you know, about this large right here, it would likely be a little bit larger than that. Me personally, I'm a huge fan of Dilophosaurus crests that are just absolutely enormous. Well, not necessarily enormous, but a bit larger than this. But it does have 2 crests, which is correct for Dilophosaurus. It has a little notch in the jaw. Like the other theropods, it does have exposed teeth, which is not too likely. And it seems to be quite large. Like, it's certainly not a Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus. in its size. It seems to have like the, you know, the large size that the real life Dilophosaurus had, as well as an elongated body, which is also very true for the animal. It also seems like it potentially has 4 fingers. Yeah. Yeah, Dilophosaurus did have 4 digits on each hand, with the 4th one being quite a bit reduced compared to the rest of them. And it seems like that's present right here. So yeah, it's pretty good, you know? It's pretty good. I know it spits venom in the game too, which obviously we don't have evidence for that. And Dilophosaurus most likely did not do that. But, cool. Yeah, no, this is a pretty good one. And Cryolophosaurus, and I think I have a mutation equipped, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that. Oh, it's so skinny. It's so skinny. So yeah, it's something. I could tell you that. It's very thin, and it's huge and elongated, very similar to the Dilophosaurus, which is true. Those two were kind of similar in their general body plan as far as we could tell. It's got some spikes going on here, which we don't really have evidence for. I guess you could possibly call those keratinous spikes, which may or may not have been present, but it's very hard to say. The head shape looks pretty good for the most part. Like, you got a relatively thin, like, narrow snout that's a little bit elongated. And the main thing is this crest. This crest is one of the ways that Dilophosaurus stands out. Most dinosaurs have crests, like most theropod dinosaurs at the very least, have crests that go front to, like, back to front, like they're facing that direction. Cryolophosaurus has crests, a crest that goes side to side, like they're facing that direction. So it's quite a bit unique in that department. It makes it look very cool. Yeah, no, it's also not bad. It's very naked. Same with the Dilophosaurus. I mean, obviously we don't really have evidence for feathers in those fellas, but I wouldn't be surprised if feathers were present on those animals. So yeah, that's the Cryolophosaurus. The Carnotaurus. Here, let me just... I don't think... Do I have a mutation equipped? I don't. The robust Carno. What is that? Oh my gosh. What? What happened to your snout, my friend? Holy moly. Okay, well, let me just get the default skin just to be on... Yeah, it looks the same. Okay. Just making sure. Anyway, this is the Carnotaurus. They made it so incredibly beefy. Oddly enough, I think it's possible that Carnotaurus was a little bit thinner than this, but it's kind of hard to say. It seems to have the proper build of a Carnotaurus. Like, the proportions seem to be pretty good. It has like a reduced snout, though on Carnotaurus it wasn't quite this rounded. Still looks pretty good though, and it has the brow horns, which is very notable on Carnotaurus. It did have those. The arms look really good. They are very short, very, very short arms that are potentially held backwards. Exactly like this. Everybody gives Tyrannosaurs flack for their arms, but man, look at a Belosaurid arms. That is another level. It's got this huge tail as well. We don't know quite how large Carnotaurus's legs are because those weren't found. And it has osteoderms on the back. Again, very crocodilian-like osteoderms. Carnotaurus didn't have osteoderms, period. And I know there's a lot of people who are getting ready to type in the comments, yes, they did. They did have osteoderms. And no, it was once thought that they did because there was these huge bumps, essentially, that were found in skin impressions. But it was later found out that those bumps were feature scales, which are just basically large scales that are mixed in with smaller scales. Triceratops has the very same thing, interestingly enough. So Carnotaurus, as far as we can tell anyway from the evidence that we have, did not have osteoderms. Instead, they just had feature scales that were pebbled across the body. And even if you could say that these are feature scales, of course they were not layered like this, like straight on the back. They would just be randomly all over the body. Like, you see that bump right there that this is my cursor's pointing at? You could call that a feature scale right there. But yeah, it still looks really cool. Again, another one of the most iconic creature designs in this game, I'm sure. Oh, the Ceratosaurus. Oh my gosh. Oh, it looks so cool. Look at that. Oh, this is another one of my favorites. So there's a lot of things that are fantastic about this design. The shape of it looks really good. I like how much bulk it has because it seems like Ceratosaurus had quite a bit of bulk to it. Like, it was kind of like a very robust and stout animal, at least judging from the fossil, like the skeletons that we have of it. The skull shape looks really, really spot on. Like, that snout shape looks fantastic. It has its lacrimal crests right here, one on each side, of course. and a sort of nasal crest right here. I like the size that they gave it. Of course, the nasal crest and the lacrimal crests are also structures that would have been layered in keratin. So, you know, giving them a size like this is a really cool sight to see. It has these pretty stout arms with 4 digits on each hand, another correct thing. And it does have osteoderms. And this time, it's correct. Ceratosaurus is one of the few theropods that we know about that had osteoderms. Whether or not they look like this in life is probably another discussion, but them being present is correct. And it really gives it a very cool look. Like, this is like seriously one of the coolest designs in the whole game. I absolutely adore this. This is just so flippin' awesome. Just look at that. And yes, I see those stegosaurs back there. Those are also very good. Too bad we can't look at them one-on-one. Well, I think I have a way to look at them. We'll try to look at them. Look at that. That is beautiful. And then the only herbivorous dinosaur on the roster so far. Well, potentially herbivorous. There's actually a possibility that Pachycephalosaurus was an omnivorous dinosaur, but we don't know. You know, it seems like it has different types of teeth in its mouth, and it seems like towards the front of the mouth there were some sharp teeth, which might potentially hint at a possible omnivorous diet. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that. It looks a lot like the Pokemon, the fossil Pokemon that are based off of Pachycephalosaurus. Like, it kind of looks like that one, and it just in its overall shape of its head. This is a very good model, though. It very much screams Pachycephalosaurus. I love that dome that it has, and I love that these spikes back here were given the shape that they were given. Hands look good. They're relatively small compared to the rest of the body. The arms also look great. And it seems like it has either some keratinous structures or osteoderms on the back, but the roughness of the skull was very much captured here. You do have a beak, which is correct, and the very bumpy nose as well. So cool. And these colors in particular, I love them. I really do. Okay, so those are those ones. That's all these creatures, but there are some dead creatures in the maps that I'm going to go and try to look at. I don't know if they're actually available when I go in free roam. I'm going to try. I'll just go around as a spectator real quick. Let's see if we can find them. There should be. I mean, there's human health, so I assume there would be the dinosaur health. Yes, okay. So yeah, these dinosaurs will be playable once they release Sandbox, I noticed, which is going to be awesome. Can't wait to see that. But we'll just look at their corpses to look at their quality. So this one is likely Iguanodon. Head shape looks really good. It has a beak, which is correct. Iguanodon did have a beak. Some cheeks, which are very much possible as well. Huge arms with basically fingers essentially that were almost like fused together, and a huge thumb claw. That's Iguanodon's claim to fame. It uses its hands to stab you essentially. Yeah, that was likely used as defense, and also possibly like intraspecific combat, or to pull down branches or something in that ballpark. Okay, so that's the Iguanodon. There should be, per my knowledge, there's only 3 different dinosaurs: a Parasaurolophus, Stegosaurus, and that Iguanodon. Let's see if I can find them all. Okay, this is the Parasaurolophus. Its head looks good. You know, it looks like a Parasaurolophus head. Unfortunately, it's just, you know, it's seen better days, but the head looks fairly good. You have the nasal portion that links up with the crest. In fact, that crest links up with the nasal cavity, which is something that potentially let Parasaurolophus amplify its noises. It also has cheeks, I noticed. Its forelimbs are completely gone, which I wonder if that's something that they did after the fact that we found out that Monosaurus had hoof-like structures on its forelimbs. Because it's possible that other hadrosaurs did too. But it's also beefy. It's very beefy. Maybe the neck could be a little bit beefier, but that's not really, that's a nitpick mainly, because generally speaking, that certainly looks a lot like a Parasaurolophus. Now, Stegosaurus. We just need the Stegosaurus. Aha! Stegosaurus. Okay. This one also looks pretty good. We can't see the full head, unfortunately, but it seems like it has the general shape that's correct. The neck is decently long, though it could probably be a little bit longer. The forelimbs are built, which is, I'd say, is true, because Stegosaurus has huge limbs. The humerus in particular is absolutely massive. The humerus is basically the upper arm bone right here. They also just have like a really big delta pectoral crest on their humerus, which is the attachment point for chest muscles and for shoulder muscles. So the front portion of Stegosaurus was probably pretty beefy. The same could also be said for the back. And these feet look pretty decent, although I think that the toes could stand to be a little bit more square. Stegosaurus had like strangely square nails or hooves or whatever you want to call them towards the back, like on the back feet. The plates also look pretty darn good. Like they start off small over here and then they build up to be a little bit larger. That seems pretty good. Yeah. The forelimbs look pretty decent. You got like 3 toes with nails and then 2 vestigial ones right there. And of course the thagomizer, that collection of spikes. They actually seem to be facing the correct angle, and the fact that they're angled back and kind of like, you know, set back a little bit more. So that is a very solid Stegosaurus model. Too bad it's dead. Can't wait to play as it. So yeah, those are the creatures of Primal Carnage. Very good, actually. Like, a lot of those designs seem like they had a lot of care applied to them, which is something that I always love to see. So I cannot wait for this game to come out on PlayStation so more people can play it. And, you know, if you guys are liking the the Primal Carnage content, then be sure to let me know so that we can continue doing stuff like that. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.